Today we will be learning about using interrupts inside the PIC16F877A and the PIC12F675 microcontroller. We will be seeing how to use the interrupts inside both these microcontrollers. Firstly, we will be looking at the PIC16F877A. So you can find about the interrupts inside the special functions of the CPU, the special features of CPU. Under this, if you move on a little bit below, you can see about the interrupt section. So here you can see the interrupts. The PIC16F877A can contain up to 15 sources of interrupts. The intcon register records the individual interrupt requests in the flag bits. It has also individual and global enable flag bits. Now firstly, the global interrupt enable bit, you have to set this bit before using any kind of interrupts. This is the global interrupt enable bit. You have to set this before using any other interrupts. So you can see here the interrupt logic. There are various sources of interrupts like the EEPROM interrupt, pin change interrupt, analog AD converter interrupt, analog comparator interrupt, serial communications interrupt, also the external hardware interrupt INT. So there are various sources of interrupts. Interrupt logic diagram you can very well understand. If you look at it carefully, you can see this is the enable and the flag. Also here the enable and the flag. So these the EEPROM, AD, PX, SSP, CCP, timer, bus collision, comparator, all these are ORed together, and in this AND gate you can see the PEIE. This PEIE is therefore the peripheral interrupt enable bit. So when you enable this bit, so you can now use all of these peripheral interrupts. So if you want to use any of these peripheral interrupts, you need to set the PEIE also. You need to set the PEIE to use any of these peripheral interrupts. You can very well understand by the logic being depicted here. And finally you can see the GIE is the global interrupt enable. So if you want to use any kind of interrupt, be it PEIE or be it any timer or external hardware interrupt or pin change or any interrupt you would like to use, you have to set the GIE, the global interrupt enable. So that's why this GIE is at the last AND gate. The global interrupt enable needs to be set first before using any other sources of interrupt. So this interrupt logic diagram, I think it is very much clear to you. So if you now move on below, you can see the external interrupt on the RB0 INT pin is edge triggered. So the INT pin RB0 is edge triggered, either rising or falling, which can be set by the int DG bit. So the int DG bit needs to be set or clear to make it either rising or falling. So when a valid edge appears on the RB0, the INTF is set. So this is the flag bit, INTF flag bit. Now to enable the external hardware interrupt, you need to set up the INTE first. Now it says the INTF flag bit must be cleared in the software in the interrupt service routing ISR before re-enabling this interrupt. So this must be cleared in software at the end of the ISR. We will be seeing all this when we will describe the code, but now let's first look at the other sources of the interrupts. If you move on above, you can see the peripheral registers, peripheral interrupt flags like the ADCs, comparators. They can be found in the special function registers PIR1 and PIR2. The corresponding enable bits contained in the special function registers PIE1 and PIE2, and the peripheral interrupt enable bit is contained in the special function register intcon. Now we have the general overview of the interrupt. So we will be now looking inside each of these registers. So to find them easily, you can move on to index first. So let's move on to the P, where you have the peripheral interrupt. So if you move on to a little bit below, you can see the PIR1. See here you have the PIR1 and the PIR2. Now to have the detailed description of these registers, you scroll down below. First the status register, then you will come across the option name register. So in the option leg register, you have the int dg bit. Int dg bit, if it is set to 1, then the interrupt is on the rising edge of the RB0 INT pin, and if it is cleared, then it is on the falling edge of the RB0 INT pin. So this bit is to be used since we will be using the external hardware interrupt in our code. The other bits are not for our purpose right now. Now move on below the intcon register. It is a readable and writable register which contains the various enable and flag bits for the timer 0 interrupt, overflow, RB port change, and external RB0 INT interrupts. So here we have the GIE, which is the global interrupt enable bit. Setting it to 1 enable all the interrupts. Now the PEIE, or the peripheral interrupt enable bit. So enables all. If set to 1, it will enable every other peripheral interrupts. Now the timer 0 overflow interrupt, and this is the INTE. INTE is for the enabling the RB0 INT external interrupt. So this is the INTE which will enable the external hardware interrupt. This is the port change. This is the timer 0 interrupt flag bit. This is the INTF. This is the external interrupt flag bit. This is the flag bit for the INT interrupt RB0 INT interrupt. If it is 1, then the external interrupt has occurred. Must be cleared in software. This is to be noted. Must be cleared in software. This is important. And lastly, the RBIF, which is the pin change interrupt flag bit. Also moving below, we have the PIE1, which contains the individual enable bits for the peripheral interrupts. So for the peripheral interrupts, you have the various enable bits like the AD, user receive, TXIE, synchronous serial port, CCP1 interrupt, timer 2 IE, timer 1 IE. So this is the PIE1. Also, if you move on to below, you have the PIR1, which contains the individual flag bits for the peripheral interrupts. So PIE1 and PIR1 are interrelated. So first the enable register, then here is the flag register. So here you have every flag, ADIF, RCIF, TXIF. So every flag bits. Also in every bit it says must be cleared in software. Now again the PIE2, this is for the CMIE, comparator interrupt enable bit, EEPROM, bus position interrupt enable bit, and the CCP2 interrupt enable bit. This is the PIE2. And again we have the PIR2. So PIE2 and PIR2 both interrelated. These are for the flag bits. I think you can very well understand the F is for the flag and the E is for the enable. So I think you can very well understand what this bit is being used for. All these things are self-explanatory. So I think these registers are clear to you. PIE1, PIR1, PIE2, PIR2, and option underscore reg register, which you have saw at the very beginning. Above the option reg register had the int dg bit is there, option reg, and the intcon, the intcon, which is the enable bits for various interrupt sources. So there are a lot of registers associated with the interrupts, but don't need to worry, since the MPLAB IDE, the XC compiler can actually support individual bit manipulation. So you do not need to remember the name of each and every registers like the PIR1, PIE1. You just need to remember the bits. See here, I have used directly the GIE, directly the bit, int DG, int E, PEIE, CMIE, like that. So you do not need to worry about the name of all those registers and like where this bit, in which register this bit is contained. You have to remember. No need to worry about that. You just need to remember these bits, that the CMIE, PEIE, INTF, and you are good to go. So don't worry, just read the datasheet once, see what each bit will do, what is the function and functionality of each bits, and you are good to go. So using all this we have discussed, we will be using all these things in our code. So now we will be looking at the circuitry the circuit which we will be describing, and then we will be coming at the code. So first let's describe the circuit. This is the circuit diagram. PIC16F877 microcontroller. You can see here, this is the analog comparator. RA0 and RA3 are the two pins for the analog comparator. You can see this is a 2.5 volt reference set up by this 3.3 kilo ohm resistors. This is a 2.5 volt reference on the RA3 or the plus pin of the analog comparator, and the LDR is connected to LDR divider is connected to the minus pin of the AN0 or RA0. So on the occurrence of the light, when light falls on the LDR, the resistance will decrease and the voltage across that is inverting terminal will decrease, and then the C1 out will be then high. And when no light falls on LDR, resistance is very high. The voltage here will be greater than this 2.5 volts, and C1 out will be equal to 0. So this is the analog comparator, and the CMIF flag is to be monitored here. So the comparator interrupt enable is to be set here. Will be set that in the code. Also you can see here, this is the external hardware interrupt, INT RB0, INT external interrupt at the RB0. So 1 kilo ohm pull up with a push button. When we will close the push button, we will have a falling edge, and on the falling edge the interrupt will be detected. And this is the RB1 and the RD1, both are the connected to onboard LEDs with this resistance, small resistance. So we will be using these two LEDs. This RB1 will be for the main code. In the main code we will be blinking this LED forever, and on the occurrence of the interrupt, when the external hardware interrupt will occur, the RD1 LED will blink once, and when the comparator interrupt will occur, the RD1 will blink 5 times. So this is our program. When the occurrence of any external interrupt, the falling edge interrupt, RD1 will blink once, and when the comparator interrupt will occur, RD1 will blink 5 times faster, at a faster rate. And on the main code, RB1 will continuously blink. This is the main code where the RB1 will blink continuously, and in normal conditions, means in the main code, RD1 will be off. So the RD1 is used as a demonstration purpose LED only for the interrupt, only on the occurrence of the interrupts, and RB1 is for the main code. So I think I have described this circuit, and this will be used in our code. So let's see the code now. Now we will be coming at the code. So firstly the pragma configuration bits and the external frequency of 20 MHz. Now the very important thing, which is the interrupt service routine or the ISR. The method of writing an ISR is void, since you know an ISR returns nothing. Also there is no parameter inside an ISR, so it is also void. So void, no return type. Now underscore double underscore interrupt bracket, and you can give any name to this. This can be of any name. Your ISR name can be any name. I have used the name blink, and the parameter is void. So this is the basic syntax for the ISR. Double underscore interrupt bracket, and then the name of the ISR, any name you can give, void, and on the curly braces you can see here. Now after you have written this, now if you again look back at the data sheet, it says once in the interrupt service routine, the sources of the interrupts can be determined by polling the interrupt flag bits. The interrupt flag bits must be cleared in software before re-enabling the interrupts to avoid recursive interrupts. So you can see this statement, once in the ISR, the sources of interrupts can be determined by polling the individual flag bits. So we have used that thing here. See here, if INTF means that in the ISR, firstly we have used like the if statements. So here it is a polling method. So if the interrupt flag bits, which is the external hardware interrupt, if INT0, if the interrupt flag bit is set, then blink the RD1 LED. My LED onboard LED is connected to RD1, so blink RD once and then clear the flag. You saw the statement there. you saw the statement on the data sheet to clear the flag after serving the interrupt. So see here at the ISR you have used if, so it is a polling method. So you are basically doing a polling method to check if the INTF bit is checked. So means that when the interrupt is occurred or not. So if the interrupt is occurred, then blink the RD1 LED once and then clear the flag, and then the bracket is closed. Now in the comparator interrupt, since I have used a comparator interrupt, so CMIF. So in the CMIF, if the comparator interrupt flag is set, then the RD1 LED is blinked 5 times by using a simple for loop, and by setting and clearing the RD1 LED and then clearing the CMIF flag. So see here it is a simple if statement, and here it is also a simple if statement. So similarly, if you have an AD converter interrupt, so you can also write as if ADIF then curly braces, and you can write your in ISR. So I think the method you can understand what I am trying to describe is that inside the ISR the polling method is used. Here you have checking whether the INTF is checked, whether the CMIF is checked, or any other sources of interrupt if you wish to write further below. So you can understand the point here. I have used 2 sources of interrupts. You can add anything other if you need. So basically this is the whole ISR which we have discussed right now, and now comes the void main, which is the main part. So see here the GIE global interrupts enable, you have to set this bit. Now int DG I have used falling edge, so int DG. If you have forgotten all these register descriptions, don't hesitate to pause this video and again returning back when I have described all these bits. Moving further, you have the INTE, enable INTO, PEIE. Since I am using the comparator interrupt enable bits, so PEIE is set to 1. So I have to set up the PEIE first before using the comparator interrupt enable bit. So this is the enabling process, and then setting this corresponding LEDs as outputs and the comparator inputs by using the tri-state registers for the corresponding pins, and the RD1 is LED is off at normal conditions, and the comparator is set at the independent comparator mode. The comparator is set as independent comparator as 0 1 0, and now in the infinite while loop the RB1 LED, the RB1 onboard LED will go on flashing continuously. It will go on blinking continuously, and when any sources of interrupts occur, it will serve the corresponding interrupt. It will serve the corresponding interrupts. So I think the code is clear, and if you are messing up all these bits, don't forget to pause this video and again watch those functioning of the bits, or you can also check the datasheet also. Datasheet is the best friend of yours, always remember that. So we will be compiling this code to see if there are any errors occurring or not. So build is successful, there are no errors, and we will be seeing the code in action by using my Pickit and burning the code into the flash. Let's see. You can see the code is being uploaded using this Pickit 3, and this is my microcontroller board. These 2 are the onboard LEDs. This is the RB1, this is the RD1, and this is the register divider which generates the 2.5 volt difference, and the LDR is connected onboard. Here you can see the onboard LED with the pull-up resistance is connected here, and this is the push button with the 1 kilo ohm pull-up. Now if I press the push button, see it has blinked once. So as per the ISR, it has blinked once. Now if I bring the torchlight near this LDR, see as the light falls on LDR, voltage at the minus terminal of the comparator reduces, therefore V plus greater than V minus, therefore the comparator output is high and the comparator interrupt flag is being triggered, and therefore the interrupt is being served. And when we remove the light source, then again the flag becomes clear, and it returns to the main, and again the RB1 blinks on forever. So two sources of interrupts, the push button and the comparator. So this program is working fine. Now we will be looking at the PIC12F675 interrupts. So I hope you found the first portion using the PIC16F877 interrupts. So after using that interrupt, so we will be now using the PIC12F675, the interrupts inside the PIC12F675. So if you move on to the very beginning of the datasheet here, you can see that this microcontroller has this INT external hardware interrupt at GP2. You can see here. So here also, if you move on to the special features of the CPU, after moving below, you can find the interrupts section. So here it says this microcontroller has 7 sources of interrupts: external hardware interrupt, timer 0, GPIO change interrupts, comparator AD interrupt, timer 1, EEPROM data write interrupt, interrupt control register INTCON, and the peripheral interrupt register recorded individual interrupt request in flag bits. INTCON register also has individual global interrupt enable bits. The global interrupt enable bits, as usual, the GIE, the same concept as the previous one. Now coming at page 13 of the datasheet, under this memory organization, so you have firstly the status register, and then moving below you have the option net register. In the option net register you have this INTEDG bit, which is the same thing, which will interrupt on falling edge or rising edge on the GP2 INT pin. So the same name and the same bit name. Also moving below, INTCON, same name, the same register description: GIE, PEIE, TOIE, INTE, GPIE, TOIF, INTF, GPIF. So you know E for the enable and F for the flag. So this is the peripheral interrupt, GI is for the global interrupt, INT is for the external interrupt enable bit. So these are self-explanatory. Also moving below, PIE1, peripheral interrupt enable register 1. Also do note, PEIE is to be set before enabling any peripheral interrupt. So this is the EEPROM, AD converter, comparator, and the timer 1. These are content in the PEIE enable register. Moving again below, PIR1, then the individual flag bits, EEIF, ADIF, CMIF, TM1, TMR1IF. So this is the overall register description in the PIC12F675. You can very well understand, since this is a small microcontroller, there are not many much functionality in this microcontroller, therefore you have lesser number of registers compared to the 16F877, but the general concept is same. The same concept is to be used, the same kind of coding is to be used here, and the almost similar register descriptions you can also find here with the similar type of names you can find in this datasheet too. So I think this the general description inside this microcontroller is also clear, and we will be now describing the hardware, and then we will be describing the code in the MPLABX for this microcontroller. Now you can see the circuitry here. The GP2 INT is connected to a push button with a 1 kilo ohm pull-up resistor, you can see here, and GP0 is connected to an LED, and GP5 is connected to an LED. So the GP0 will blink on continuously inside the main loop, and on the occurrence of the ISR, this GP5 will blink once, and then it will again return to the main code. So on the occurrence of interrupts, so on the occurrence of the push button, at the occurrence of the interrupts on the falling edge, the GP5 LED will blink once. The microcontroller will serve the ISR, it will blink the GP5 once, and then again return to the main code, and it will again going on flashing the GP0 bit. So this is the example of our 12F675 interrupts. So let's see the code now. So you can see the code here. You can see the code with the pragma configuration bits, internal 4 MHz external frequency. Now the same kind of ISR syntax double underscore interrupt blink void, any name you can give here. Now again the same polling method, polling the INTF flag bit. So on the occurrence of the flag, on the falling edge, on the occurrence of the interrupt, it will jump off from the main code. It will sub the ISR in which we have the blinking the GP5 once and then clearing the flag and then again return to the main code. So this is the ISR section. Also, as usual, you can add more sources of interrupts like the AD conversion, EEPROM, and so on. By similarly writing such if statements, it will use the same kind of polling method. An occurrence of any kind of interrupt, it will jump onto this ISR. This is the whole ISR, and under this ISR, you can perform your polling method by checking individual flag bits. Same method like what we have used in the 16F877A. Now comes the void main. Firstly, the GIE set the global interrupts int DG0 falling edge as usual. Now enabling the INT 0. Now since we don't have any peripheral interrupts here, so PEI is not set here. So this line is commented. So no use of this here since we are not using any peripheral interrupts. Now setting the LED as outputs and GP5 as outputs, and also do note that here we have the ANSEL register. I think you know about the ANSEL register. So in the ANSEL register, by default they are set as 1, that is as analog input, but since you are using the GPIO2 as special function pin, so you need to set this ANS2 to 0 as per the note given in the ANSEL register. So if you move on the data sheet, you can see the ANSEL register. So the ANSEL register can be found inside this analog to digital converter. If you move on below, you can read about the ANSEL register, analog select register. You can see here the analog select at the note 1. You can see setting a bit to an analog input automatically disables the digital input circuitry with pull-ups and interrupts on change. The corresponding TRISC-IO bit must be set to input mode in order to allow external control of the voltage on the pin. So by default these are set as analog inputs. So if you move here by on power on is set, these are set to 1. So on 1 means as analog input, so pin is assigned to analog input, but since we need to use it as a special functions, so you will have to set to 0. So digital IO, the pin is assigned to a port of special functions. So as per the note written here and also the register description here, we need to set ANS2 to 0. Since on the pin description you can see the ANS2 is actually controlling the GP2 is the AN2 and so you need to clear the ANS2. So the ANS2 which will control the GP2 functionality, so we have to clear the ANS2 so as to use it as a special function pin. Since we have the special function interrupt functionality we will be using, that's why you have to clear the ANS2. So that's the thing we have used here to clear up the ANS2. So this is actually the point of difference in this microcontroller. You have the ANSEL register. So you have learned a lesson here. So never copy and paste any code for any other microcontroller. You will not get your desired requirement. Copying and paste the code for another microcontroller may not end up your code to work. Since in this example you have seen that you have this ANSEL register to select between analog or digital or special functionality. This ANSEL register was not present in the 16F877A. So that's why I always say datasheet is the best friend of yours. I was firstly initially overlooked this ANSEL register, and this took me a lot of time and it wasted a lot of time before this code actually worked. So that's why I always ask you to read the datasheet. So after I corrected this, my code now works fine. So now in the while loop, the GP0 LED will blink on continuously. It will blink on forever, and on the occurrence of an interrupt, this microcontroller will jump off from the main code. It will sub the ISR. It will blink GP5 once, and then return back to main code. So now let's see whether this code builds properly or not, and if it builds properly, so we will be burning this hex file into our 12web675 microcontroller. So building is successful, so let's use our PIC3 to burn this hex code and let's see the output. The code is being uploaded using the PIC3 to the PIC12web675. Here you can see the LED, the GP5 LED connected to GP5, and this one is the GP0 onboard LED, and this is the push button with the 1 kilo ohm pull up. So now if we press this button, the GP5 LED blink once, and after serving the ISR, the GP0 LED blinks on forever. The GP0 will blink on forever, and when the interrupt occurs, it will serve the interrupt and then again return to the main code where this LED will blink on forever. So I think you have learned about the interrupts quite well with these two microcontrollers as an example. Now I will recommend to use other sources of interrupts with these microcontrollers, or you may try to use other PIC microcontrollers as well. The basic syntax remains the same, the logic remains the same. Observe the data sheet, observe what kind of logic it uses, what kind of register descriptions are there, and you will be good to go. Always use the datasheet, always keep the datasheet with you, read the datasheet and apply them in the code, and you will be good to go. The general syntax remains the same in MPLAB IDE. So thank you for watching this video. So if you learned something new, so please like, share and subscribe, and please hit the notification bell for getting notified about our further videos. Thank you. Have a nice day.